So I do want to go and lay out a business card with you guys just to show you how to use a grid, and also what to expect for a business card. I also want to show you a letterhead as well. So to start with our business card, I am in Illustrator. Something to keep in mind is that business cards, there's a standard size. There are standardized sizes. In example, Google search, and you can find all the different sizes for business cards. But a standard size you'll see is 3.5 inches by 2 inches. And that can be horizontal or vertical. So you can, depending on how you'd like to lay out your overall business card, you can determine if you want it to be horizontal or if you want it to be vertical. That's up to you. But regardless, that standardized size is going to be 3.5 inches by 2 inches. If you open up Illustrator and for some odd reason it's not in inches, right? It's in pixels, you can literally click this little drop down, choose inches, and then you could even put in the numbers that you want it to be, which 3.5 by 2 again is standard. I've used this before because I've made a lot of business cards. I've also teach business cards. I've done this demo before, so I have it already kind of saved right here in my recent items. But know that Adobe does a really great job of giving templates or having templates for you to build off of. So for instance, this right here, this is just a template that I could technically build off of if I wanted to, especially if I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and I needed some type of foundation to build off of. I can definitely go here to free templates and look at all the different templates they have, and even search and just to see if there are any more. So that is something you might want to do just to save time. But I actually have an idea, so I'm going to use a blank one and just start from scratch. So I'm going to make sure that one, it's size 3.5 inches by 2. I want it to be horizontal. I could have it vertical, but for this, I'm going to have it horizontal. Now remember, your business card is most likely going to be front and back. You can make a business card where it's just a front and it's blank on the back. But I suggest, yeah, be creative. You can do front and back. That's totally fine. If you just want to do one side, that's okay too. But if you did want to do a front and a back art boards, just make sure it says two. You want two art boards, one to be the front and one to be the back. Make sure that there is a high, you want to make sure all of this is, you don't really need the advanced options actually. You could definitely create yourself a bleed. Bleeds are there so that if you are to print this, then that shows you kind of where you should stretch certain things off the page so that when your design gets cut down, you don't have this weird white frame over it, that whatever it is actually on the very edge. And I'll show you that in a second. So these are my art boards, right? So one's going to be my front, one's going to be my back. So before I even get into this, I want to make sure that my grids are in place. So I'm going to go to view. I'm going to go to rulers and put show rulers. That is the first step on getting your grid system in place. From there, I'm going to start adding in my grids. So again, you're literally from the ruler, you are clicking the ruler and dragging. And from there, you'll see these lines, these blue lines starting to be created. And then from there, you can start deciding, all right, I think I'm going to design it where I have my, sorry, view. I think my grids are locked, unlock guides. There you go. I want it so that my design, I have my logo on one side and my contact information on the other. I've done some research and I saw, you know what, I really like the way, I really, really like the way some business cards look. So I want to make sure that I'm laying out all that information in that same way. So I want to make sure that again, I'm keeping that in mind. I'm saying, okay, I want my logo to be somewhere on this side. I want it to fit somewhere within this grid. And I want my text to be somewhere on this side and fit somewhere, in this area. I think I'm gonna leave it like that. And again, you're just going to think, okay, maybe I want some of my text information or my contact information to fit within these areas. All right, now it looks like a lot of lines, I know, but I just want to make sure, I'm going to do this to this one as well, but I kind of want something somewhere in the middle because this is going to be my back and I want that to be centered. All right, I have my grid system in place, so now I can actually start designing. Now I didn't create a logo, so I'm just going to quickly create a logo. Oops. So like, let's say this is my logo. Again, you might be, oops, you might be designing and you're like, oh man, I put this way too far. That's okay. You can still click and drag your grid system so that you can kind of fix it. So if you notice is that within my grid system, I fit this circle perfectly within it. That is why grid systems are so important. It really helps you to make sure everything is created properly. Now from there, I'm just going to quickly create like a logo. All right, let's say this is my logo. Actually, I want to make that a little thicker. Eh. Let's say this is my logo. All right, so this is my logo. Why is it? Sorry. Is this it? No. Why is it doing that? There we go. Trim view. All right. If I were to go in my trim view, it'll take away all the guides and grids so that you can see what this would look like if it got printed. And if you notice, this would be my logo. And again, it's perfectly centered, not perfectly centered, but it's just on the page right now. And you'll see how well it looks when I start adding in some of my other information. All right, that's my logo. I'm going to group it just so that it stays the same. Now, now that I have my logo in, like let's say I had already created my, oops, what is this doing this? Sorry. Sorry, guys. I got rid of there we go. All right. So let's say this is my logo. Now, let's say I had made this earlier and I'm like, okay, I want to fit my logo in. Again, I have my grid system in place and now I can just click and drag it into where I want it to fit. And now that's there. Now I can add in some of my other information like my name. But again, I want to make sure there's visual hierarchy on it. So I'm going to increase the size. And I'm going to have it sit right on this line so that there is consistency in how my text is laid out. Again, you know what, I need a little bit more. So I want to make sure that I'm adding in more lines so that I can fit more text in here, but so that it is even across the board. But again, I want to make sure there's visual hierarchy, so I don't want it to be as big as my name. And I also want to make sure that the weight is different so that you can tell the difference. And I want to make sure, right, that overall I'm aligning it properly. And let's say one more contact information on here. Again, I need to add more grid lines so that there's consistency. Oops. And I'm literally just utilizing these grid lines to line everything up. And again, if I were to go to trim view, you would see that everything is very orderly, right? All the space is very even. Everything feels very structured. Nothing feels that it was just thrown on the page. And that is, yeah. So overall, this is just utilizing a grid system just really helps you to create a consistent design in terms of the space, the alignment, right? And just again brings order and organization. Now, if I wanted to, move forward and design maybe the other side of this again, because they're side to side, they have the same grid system basically in place. So what I can do is I could just bring my design over here, and now I have, again, it's consistent on either side. So if you were to flip, like had this actual business card and you were to flip it, the logo would be in this almost very similar to where it was on the other side. It wouldn't be like such a big jump of being from over here to like over here. It basically would be like shifting over. So it'll be a little bit more even, especially when you are designing, the overall look and feel of this. Just trying to get this red that I was using. Where are my switches? My microphone's in the way. There we go. I'm just going to, oops, cancel. Just click and drag this and place this over here in my swatches just so that I can have that and use it for my design over here. Oh, why did I do that? I actually didn't want to do that. I actually wanted to make this white. And then if you notice again, I have these red boxes on the outside. That is those are bleeds. So that if I were to get this printed, my printer, the printer that I would be working with, they would print this bigger and then cut it down so that the edge of my business card would have that red right along the edge so that it would be a complete background. So there you go. That is what, and if you notice too, again, with that bleed, if this were to get cut down, trim view, if this were trimmed, you're not going to see this red part. This is just so I know that when it does get trimmed down, my red will go all the way to the edge. So if this was my business card, right, I used a grid system to make sure everything was very organized, right? There was a good overall, there's a good organization, good structure to this, right? Everything's very evenly placed. The overall design is very evenly placed. I probably could adjust it a little bit more just because this overall text doesn't seem to be quite centered in the overall artboard. All the elements don't seem quite centered, so I could definitely adjust it. So if that was the case, if I'm like, you know what, it's still something still a little off, I can still click and drag everything on this page just to move it slightly so that I would bring a little bit more organization and order, lost my mouse, to this overall design. And my mouse stopped working. Why is my mouse not working? But yeah, you guys can see that, wow, my mouse just stopped working there for a second. So that you guys can see how to create a business card utilizing grids. And again, these grids really do help to create order, right? To bring structure to your overall design. And honestly, this was way easy to lay out because I wasn't just staring at a blank page trying to figure out where am I placing everything. You know what I mean? So because of that, I kind of already planned out where some of my designs or some of my elements were going to go, which saved me a whole lot of time so that I'm not just putting things on a page, and hoping I figure out along the way. Utilizing this grid system helped me to define, okay, this is my plan of how I'm going to arrange all the elements within this design. And then after I laid out that grid system, I was able to just literally insert my my elements within that grid. And it's again saved me a whole lot of time so that I wasn't just staring at a blank page trying to figure out what I should do next. But that is for a business card. Now, if you were designing a letterhead, now a letterhead goes on a letter size page, 8.5 by 11. If that was the case, you would create your letterhead page. And again, you want to utilize rulers. So you would go to view, rulers, show rulers. And then from there, you're going to start designing your letterhead or placing, I really should say, your letterhead. Now, something to keep in mind about a letterhead is that it should not take up the whole page. A letterhead really only takes up maybe a little bit of the top and a little bit of the bottom. Literally think of it as a header and a footer, right? A header and a footer, you're not supposed to take up too much the space because that header and that footer, they are not the central information that you should be concerned about. The central information is actually what goes on here in the body of the of the of the page itself. So really, when you think about letterheads, they're going to go into the left or right corner. They're going to stay at the top and maybe a little bit of information at the bottom, but your letterhead really goes somewhere at the top, and you could definitely add like contact information at the bottom. But that is the structure of a letterhead. The letterhead should not take up the whole space. The letterhead takes up just a small portion of the very top, and that's it. And then the letterhead is utilized for the business to send out, let's say, a memo or a letter or whatever it is. Oops, I brought all right. So something to remember is that when you're bringing in your logo into, let's say, your business card file or your letterhead file, you're not bringing in an image, an exported image of your logo. No, you can literally open up your logo file, select the logo, copy, and just paste it right in. That is literally all you're doing. To me, that is the best way to do it because you don't want your logo to be low quality. By just copying and pasting directly from design file to design file, you'll have a very high resolution design. I'm going to just zoom in just a little bit because I want to make sure I really am aligning this properly. Oh, I did. Okay. Oh, it's a little bit off to the edge, just a little bit. So again, by utilizing my overall grid system, it's an quick grid system, right? I didn't do a lot. I just made sure that my logo would sit nicely here on the very corner. If I wanted to add some type of design element, I could, right? Like maybe I just wanted to add some type of design element just to give it a little bit of something extra. I can do that. You don't have to. You have the option. My swatches again. Right, so properties, got rid of my properties. I want to up the stroke, which is the outline. Maybe I want to change up the way it looks, right? Maybe I want to, oops, I don't want it uniformed. Maybe I want to add some type of visual, difference to it. I'm not really feeling that. Maybe I want to add some type of artistic brush to it. This is just to the overall stroke. I could look at different brushes that I have access to, right? This is all the different brushes. Maybe I wanted to make it arrow. That doesn't really fit my aesthetic. That'd be weird. That would send them off the page rather than them reading. Maybe I want to add in, something else. And I would just go through all of these until I found something that really worked. If that's something you wanted to do, you don't have to do this. This is just a way for you to look at the different, um, this is just a way for you to look at all the different elements that you have access to. Mm. Go to my layers. Mm. I like it to an extent, but I don't know if it's doing what I want it to do. Let me bring some of my contact information in. Now for my contact information, some people might like it right underneath. Like some people, depending on how you want it, you could do it there, right underneath your logo. You can have it along the side here, and then just put it on. Let me just do one of these. Oops. I would suggest that if you are going to have all of your information together, rather than necessarily having it on one line, I would make sure having it in multiple boxes. I would have it in just one text box and then just manipulate everything from there. I'm just making things up just for the sake of this. So, and I might want to have that here. Maybe bounce it out and I'll have it on this edge, but I want to make sure I'm not too close. Again, your grids don't necessarily, you can play around with them as you go. So if that is my letterhead, this is my letterhead. All right, so this is what it would look like. So once I'm done and I've decided, because if this were to be used, then this is the section that the paragraphs would be going into, but it's not. I'm just utilizing this for the letterhead. Let me save. Letterhead demo. I'm just going to save it on my desktop in a folder. Save it there. Okay. My business card. I'm going to do the same thing. All right. I saved it as the Illustrator file. Now I want to export. So you can either do one of two ways. You can export it as images, or you can save as, drop down PDF, all artboards, save. It'll open up this little window. You really don't need to. You can include crops and bleeds if you want. You can, but you don't have to. I'm not going to include crops and bleeds in mine. I just want you to see it as is. And then I'm going to save. And then once I hit save, you will see that it saved it as two different sides. Now, keep that in mind that you want it to save as two different sides, because this is the front and the back. This isn't just one thing. And also, you don't want it to cut off. You want it to make sure the whole artboard is in view. So that is my business card. Again, I went to file, save as, file, save as, save on your computer. In the drop-down menu, it defaults to Adobe Illustrator. I want it to be a PDF. From there, I make sure all is selected. I want all my artboards to be exported, not a portion. And then I hit save. And then from save, oh, it's going to ask me if I want to replace it, which I'll say yes. And then from there, you can just hit save as PDF, and then it'll save it as a PDF with each artboard in view. Letterhead, again, you want to go to File. You want to go to File, Save As, save on your computer. You want to hit the drop-down menu and you want to select Adobe PDF. You're going to, there's just one artboard, so it's not going to ask me if I want to save each individual artboard. It's just going to save the one artboard I have. And then I'll probably name it whatever, put it in the right folder. I'm going to hit save. I don't need to manipulate this for our purposes, so I'm just going to hit save as PDF, and then it'll export my whole entire letterhead design. And that's how you do it. That's how you create letterheads, create business cards, utilizing those grids and making sure that you're exporting them properly.